Good evening and welcome back to another episode of Please Call Me Crazy, brought to you by Free People Radio and powered by our favorite sponsor, Tireget.com. That's Tireget.com. You have to buy tires from somebody, you might as well buy them from us. Help fund the movement, help support the movement. We believe in the freedom of movement, and that's exactly what the establishment wants to take from you now. I am your host, Royce White, here in the belly of the beast, Minneapolis, Minnesota, for episode 108. Today we have another incredible family and friends guest episode. Joining us in the studio is none other than the great Professor Penn from the Professor Penn podcast. If you haven't subscribed to the Professor Penn podcast, make sure you go and do that. Professor Penn podcast airs on Tuesdays and Thursday nights now at 9 p.m. Central, but soon to be 7:30 p.m. Central to stay off the runway for myself in case I decide to drop in on a Tuesday or Thursday night. You can catch both, all right? Sorry about that. Um, Thanks for being back with us, Professor Penn. I
Thanks for having
appreciate
me
it.
back.
Nobody better to bring in the studio after this weekend's events. War in Israel. I mean, war in Israel always provokes the fundamental conversation about all geopolitics, past and present.
Kind of rounds up the herd, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, I filmed a podcast this morning for all of you who are going to see it tomorrow. I've already filmed the podcast and my film ran out. I had a full hard drive, which happens sometimes, but you get about 33 minutes of the spirit of what's going on, and the rest will be audio. They'll see it tomorrow or maybe the next day. I don't know. We'll run it one of these days here in the future. But I just started off in the podcast by saying our thoughts and prayers are with everybody who's affected in Israel, all the Jews who lost their lives, and it's just a terrible thing to have happen. Anytime people go to war, people are invaded and you have this type of death, it's a terrible thing to have happen. And we should be thinking about those people for sure. I mean, that should be on the front of our minds is people dying in needless violence, senseless violence, violence that is really at the behest of radical, lost, wayward ideology, sometimes kings and kingmakers' political agendas. Same to be said with Russia and Ukraine. I mean, the real afterthought about the Russia-Ukraine war and the continuance of it is all the innocent Ukrainian people who are on the front, on the front line of those artillery shells, and they make Putin seem like the evildoer in that scenario. But we're not any more open to peace talks or diplomacy ourselves. But Israel's a whole different deal. I mean, Israel really is a different matter completely, historically and right now, And my opening statement in the podcast was, despite the death, despite all the violence and the fear, TJ Klein's in Israel right now playing. I gave my thoughts and prayers to the Lieberman family. I hope TJ flies home because no basketball career or season is worth being in that type of danger. And the danger of other people's war. Um, my opening statement is we cannot we cannot go to war with Iran. We can't do it. We can't fight a forefront war on the Eurasian landmass we can't fight a forefront war on the Eurasian landmass while 2.5 million undocumented illegal immigrants are pouring through our own border without giving up our remaining human rights and privacy to an all-out totalitarian global police state. It can't be done. We can't fight an old school traditional war on four fronts of the Eurasian landmass. And that's what it looks like they're lining us up to do. First it was Ukraine, now Israel's in. It'll be Kashmir, it'll be Taiwan. We'll be in a forefront war there in the Eurasian landmass. And how can we do it? We can't do it. Your opening thoughts.
Well, I don't think we're going to get a choice if we can or we can't. I think the people that are making these decisions believe that the United States can fight this war. They'll probably come out and say it's just one front. They'll just say it's the Asian theater. What are you talking about, four fronts? It's all one. It's all one. because, of course, the narrative is so curated and controlled. But on September 10th, the head of Mossad, a guy by the name of Barnea, something everybody can go look at on YouTube. September 10th, Barnea addressed an international conference, and he proclaimed that any attacks financed by Iran on Israelis or Jews or Israeli citizens would be met with attacks on Iran. I thought that was quite interesting. Now, of course, he's speaking in Hebrew. I mean, you can go see it. I mean, it's posted. So the precedent is there for there to be a holding to the account of this tragedy, the Iranians. It's there. It's baked in the cake. We just haven't gone through enough of the prep work for that, for we the people to understand what this game is really all about.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, to me, it just seems quite evident it's about Iran, which is really one step removed for all the folks that were at Walmart shopping this weekend and shopping at Target and all these big box stores. You know, the ability of the Iranian regime to prosecute its war, its terror war, is predicated on the support that it gets from China. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a client state of the Chinese, but it's darn close. It's darn close. They're selling their oil to the Chinese, and this is in violation of sanctions. The Chinese pay for their oil in RMB, circumventing the petrodollar. The RMB sits in the Iranian account, and then the Chinese sell finished manufacturing goods to the Iranians, and they recover that RMB in what the Chinese would call a good circulation. And the Iranian economy is so small. It's about a $358 billion economy. Just to put that in some context for the viewers and listeners, Texas is $2 trillion. So it's, 15 or not even 20% of Texas's economy. It's just a tiny place. So it really is dependent on Chinese business and Chinese direct foreign investment and Chinese supplies to continue to act in this fashion. So why aren't we dealing with that issue? I mean, if we're going to go down to root causes, if we're going to identify that Iran is the root cause, it's really not the root cause. The root cause is what's called the Iron Triangle,
right,
which is the alliance of Russia and China and Iran. They call it the Iron Triangle because it's unbreakable. So if we're going to get down,
it's the realization. It's the three country realization of Mackinder's World Island theory.
And it's three countries that are uniting in an effort to throw off
the West,
the dollar hegemony,
mm-hmm.
and what they would call American imperialism. I mean, that's just what it is.
It's a Sino in Mackinder's Mackinder's World Island theory. It was a Sino-Russia empire. Alliance
was the greatest fear
of
Mackinder.
Of Mackinder.
Right. And of course, if you go back into history, Kissinger's opening to China was a way
to stagnate the development of a Russo-Sino
to
alliance.
Buy the Chinese off, buy them away from
mm-hmm.
the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. That started in 1972. So here we are. What is that? That's 38, 38, 48. It's 51 years later. It's come undone. The Kissingerian realpolitik has been undone. And we're facing an iron triangle of an alliance.
Okay. Now, there are people out there. First of all, there's a lot of theories out there about this war, and I think there should be. I think citizens should be very skeptical of what they're told when they see conflict like this happen. And there are multiple theories out there about what's taking place and who's behind it. What's the motivation? Who's behind it? Who's pulling the strings? And I said in my podcast, it dawns on me that if the entire intelligence community This was after we talked the last night. It wasn't last night, night before. This was after we
When we
talked.
couldn't sleep.
We couldn't sleep, yeah. And it dawned on me, though, after we got done talking, thought to myself, the brazenness of the storytellers in our day and age is astounding, to say the very least. I mean, the story is just so goofy. It really reflects a general, thinking of stupidity about the American people and really people anywhere in the world. Because to say that they were caught off guard in Israel because it was a Jewish holiday really undermines a lot far beyond Israel. And number one, I don't believe that Mossad recognizes Jewish holidays enough to trust that the Palestinians or any of their neighbors won't attack them. Because again, I mean, we just observed Yom Kippur, the Yom Kippur War, which I think validly instantiated Israel as a legitimate nation after its inception. You fight a war for a land on three fronts, you win the war, that's your land. I mean, it's been that way since the earliest days of mankind. You come to a territory that's unclaimed with another person, you fight to the death. Whoever's still standing wins the land. Basic. Now, in this sort of post-United Nations, kind of post-conquestial society we live in now, there's all this esoteric views about territory and who owns it and who doesn't. Old school is, you, me, and you, we want this bone, this dog bone. If I kill you or you submit, it's my dog bone. Okay. But I'm just saying the Yom Kippur War was them being attacked on a Jewish holiday. I would not venture to guess that every Jewish holiday, there's not a high security alert there in Israel from Mossad and other national security agencies there in Israel. Them aside, all of the international agencies that claim to be surveilling international terroristic threats on behalf of the American people, which by extension is Israel, per our foreign policy. All of us were observing a Jewish holiday too. MI6, Interpol, the CIA, the FBI, the Five Eyes, the entire Five Eyes was observing the Jewish holiday too. None of us knew. None of us saw 5,000 rockets being loaded in Palestine. and if that's true, let me be clear. I'm not saying it's impossible that all these people were asleep and caught with their pants down. I think it's highly unlikely, but I'm not saying it's impossible. As the great Jack Posobiec said, intelligence communities are not as sophisticated as you think. They're like little hipster,
bunch of Yale graduates,
a little bunch of hipsters, right? I don't buy that all the way, but I like Jack Posobiec. He's a hitter. I love him. But I'll accept that maybe there's a radical incompetence that's widespread through the intelligence community. Fine. What I don't accept is the continuance of the Patriot Act under the guise that our intelligence is so sophisticated that these type of things won't happen. I think the House Republicans right now are going to show who they really are, who we all know many of them to be, per the last couple of weeks of political controversy here in America with Matt Gaetz. And in fact, I may myself text message Matt Gaetz and tell him to bring the resolution to repeal the Patriot Act completely. Because it's insufficient. It's failed. If Israel can get attacked on a Jewish holiday, then the rights and privacy we've given up to the security state is a complete failure.
It was wrong. This is the big question, right? We can't give up our rights. We can't. I mean, whatever the cause, incompetence. Let's say there's gross incompetence.
Mm-hmm.
All you need is one competent person in that chain that allows all the incompetence to be at his or her direction. So incompetence is something to manipulate.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely.
Great. I mean, and I saw certain reports that the Palestinians were able to exploit the AI that the Israelis were using to monitor the fence, that they understood how to frustrate those algorithms. Who knows? We're not going to know. What do we know for sure? We know that on September 10th, the head of the Mossad said, if you mess with us, we're going to kill you. And he was talking about senior Iranian officials. So the precedent has been set, the gauntlet has been laid down for retribution.
We're going to war with Iran.
It seems to me that that would be a relatively safe bet.
Okay, now, the prospect of war with Iran, this entire proxy war that's going down between Saudi Arabia and Iran is a peculiar one. And it's one that really frustrates the post-World War II democratic liberal order. This whole globalism is a deterrence for world war theory. Because on one hand, you have faith, military, ideological differences. And on the other hand, now you have what is the supposed safeguard of economic incentive.
Activity.
Right. Tell me how, okay, for example, the BRICS is this huge economic alliance, right, that now includes Saudi Arabia and Iran by most metrics. And then you got rail and port. I thought about this after we spoke. You got the rail and port initiative, right? This India, Saudi, Israeli, U.S. alliance to create a pipeline or rail system. A corridor to Europe, to get energy to Europe and goods, right?
Indian goods
to Europe. It's a counter to Belt and Road, right?
It's an alternative.
So let's say the Chinese greenlit Iran to greenlight Hamas to attack Israel because this is a threat to the Belt and Road Initiative. It would seem that that would just galvanize those four nations in expediting the rail and port initiative. I mean, if there's a 4-country alliance that now seeks to create an alternative to your initiative, if you attack the linchpin of the whole Western global narrative, it's going to rally those 4 countries around that agenda.
Well, which country is the linchpin of that agreement?
Israel.
Saudi. I think the Saudi is the key in that corridor is based on Saudi Arabia making a peace with the Israelis. And if we remember 9/11, what do we know? Those were Saudi terrorists. We know that within Saudi Arabia, there's not any more congruency there amongst the leadership about how to proceed than we have in any of the countries of the world.
Right.
Our country's at odds with itself. I know that China's having a huge throwdown within its leadership. In fact, their Minister of Defense disappeared recently. Their Foreign Affairs Minister, well, they have an interesting way of it. They don't have to worry about appearances. They just say, your disappearance is all we need for appearances. You disappear. So they're all over the world, this fight among the elites about what direction we're going to go here. Because the thing that's making our analysis a little bit less interesting is we should all be figuring this out now. I mean, a modicum amount of time spent looking at this, we're coming to the same conclusion all over the world. And so are the people in government. People in government are saying, what is my government doing? We're heading into a world war. All over the world, people are saying, hey, I have a family. This is not really a good idea. So within our government, I'm watching it in every element of our government that I'm involved with, which, I have a particular focus in business. I can see that our federal government, related to China, in our Department of Commerce, is at odds with itself. One part is saying, come on in, let's do business. We're going to lower our tariffs and duties and make it as easy as possible for the Chinese to do business here. And another group is saying, no, we're not going to we're going to harass, we're going to put up barriers, we're going to stop them. So we don't have congruence in our individual departments.
Right.
This is all over the world. So in Saudi, MBS, who is definitely a new generation, it's the youngest Saudi leader I can remember in my lifetime. I mean, the youngest of them were old. Sometimes they're fossilized, right? It's not clear to me that he has the control over his country and its governance that we might presume that he has. So when Hamas acts in this fashion, it kind of backs him into a corner, not on the stage of world opinion, but when he goes to sleep at night, he's got people he's got to be paying attention to, right?
Right.
It's a different kind of governance. So I'm not sure that Saudi
Smack that out.
has got congruence in how to proceed from this point forward, because they have to deal with their population and with the different political constituencies in their own kingdom.
But when I say Israel is the linchpin of the global narrative.
Oh, the global narrative is different than of that corridor.
Right.
That corridor is about Saudi reconciling with Israel.
Right, but if you go and attack the linchpin of the global narrative, then you pull the Americans into a position where they have to do exactly what we're doing. We're sailing the Gerald Ford into the Mediterranean, and we're getting ready to back Israel's play by any means necessary.
And no matter what they do, it seems like.
Right. Right.
I mean, we don't know that this whole play wasn't a repudiation of Israel of the Biden administration, for the Biden administration recently given $6 billion to the Iranians in a prisoner exchange.
Explain. What are you saying?
Well, there's definitely a very relatively pro Iranian perspective in Europe and in the, shall we say, the left side of the Uni Party, which makes me wonder what the right side really thinks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I only see one party. But the talking heads seem to explain that the Biden administration has blood on their hands because they gave this fungible money to the Iranians, who then had the money to fund terrorist activities throughout the Middle East.
Right.
Right. Maybe the Israelis feel a little bit alone.
I mean, how sophisticated are these people? I mean, this is getting deep into the weeds, and I'm not saying they're not that coordinated, because to me, your average citizen couldn't imagine how coordinated certain people are and how far they're willing to go, even on the international stage. These are kings and king makers. They think in these terms. I mean, really, there is an ongoing war of nations or joust for position that always thinks in these broad terms of nation on nation and cause and effect and sort of this sequential nature of nation. This is who we should be electing, people who have that capacity to think in that way, at least to get us out of the rabbit hole we're in. But so if China funds Iran, America, or a certain faction of America, is certainly pro-China.
Then they're pro-Iranian.
Then they're pro-Iranian.
Then they're anti-Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, isn't it?
Very.
I mean, we're getting down into the bottom of the hole here where things.
But now
we're
going to sail. Now we're going to sail the Ford into the Mediterranean to back Israel's play.
You know, when
to justify the war with Iran.
When we get down to the end of the narrative, things stop making sense. The splits in the narrative start to show up.
Mm-hmm.
So then, what is the congruence of all the narratives? The people that run the military-industrial complex are making a lot of money, and at the end of the day, we lose our freedoms. The rest of it is kind of a story, a diversion. At the end of the day, the military-industrial complex is getting stronger. Military affairs are dominating the world. Wars are breaking out everywhere. And in response to it, I'm going to lose my freedom. Because after all, if we have this kind of terrorist...
And you're going to probably lose your kids and your Social Security.
That would be tough at my age.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to lose the Social Security.
Well, yeah. I mean,
right.
It's a threefer.
Takes care of a lot of problems.
Freedoms, Social Security, children. If you get into a three-front war on the Eurasian landmass, you're going to a draft. Maybe that's why they're letting illegal immigrants in. Imagine the level of American descent there should be if we promulgate a Asia theater, a world war. And I said on my podcast, this is World War IV. World War III was a silent war of misinformation. We lost that war. People all around the world lost that war.
Three people lost it.
3 people lost that war hand over fist. I mean, we just bent over and took it. This is the Fourth World War. In a Fourth World War, America is going to draft American citizens and allow illegal immigrants to come in the country undocumented and live here freely?
Or let them be members of the military in exchange for citizenship.
Well, that's one solution.
Well,
yeah.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Or
what a malleable group to acculturate into whatever the spin
but then all of
masters.
your humanitarian leftist yuppie posh liberals are going to say they didn't flee their country, their war-torn, desperate countries to become pawns in our war.
Excuse me, what liberals are we talking about? Are these the liberals that are back in the war in the Ukraine?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So if you're going to support war, with a little flag on your social media post.
Or in your front yard.
Yeah, maybe you should think about actually picking up a weapon
Yeah.
and going off to fight it. Yeah. Instead of acting holier than thou and having other people die for your virtue. No, virtue is what we're doing. We're risking everything to search for the truth. This truth-seeking media. The viewers and listeners see us kind of exploring this. I mean, we're not taking fixed positions because there's so much we don't know. We're exploring this very forthrightly and very honestly. We know there's a limit to what our knowledge is. But what we know in exploring beyond the media narrative.
Cui bono, who benefits?
On this particular issue, we're actually being virtuous. We're risking our freedoms and our lives.
And we do know a great deal. Cui bono, who benefits?
Well, who does benefit here?
The military-industrial complex.
They sure do, don't they?
Conveniently.
How fantastic is that?
Absolutely, they benefit. Absolutely, they do, and that's why I said if I was in the United States Senate right now, this morning there would have been a resolution to revoke the Patriot Act on the grounds that it is shown to be a systemic failure. It's a failure.
There's a difference between being pro-peace and pro-America. We're not saying as Americans there aren't things worth fighting for.
Right.
We're saying that these things, at this time, I'm saying this as a Jewish man. I'm going to get in trouble for this, of course. But what are we doing? Why is America getting drawn into this forefront Asian war, which if you can think of the Princess Bride, for the people that remember this, never get into a land war in Asia? Looks like we could get into 4 land wars in Asia. I mean, why go halfway? Go all the way.
Quadruple down.
From east to west and from the north to the south.
Yeah.
We're living out McKinder. And whose play is McKinder?
The Crown.
The Crown. What do we care about that?
Yeah.
We're the new republic. We're America. Why am I involved?
Why are we doing Europe's bitch work?
As an American citizen, after getting divorced from these people, why are they back in the bedroom? We need a complete divorce from this whole European mindset, which, that's the end of MSNBC. I mean, I watch Morning Joe every morning just to see what they're thinking over there. That's an Atlanticist broadcast. That's a broadcast. That's a network, NBC, CBS, ABC. They're based on a certain formation of consciousness that involves the Euro-American alliance or the British-American alliance.
Mm-hmm.
An unjust war, is using Israel as a puzzle piece in a globalized architecture. That's unjust. It's unjust to the Jews.
Absolutely.
I mean,
first and foremost.
Getting used. No different than the black community being used.
Using blacks to steal elections.
Same. Using blacks, period.
Well, let's keep it local.
Keep it local. How about just using them For example, I got a phone call last night out in my neighborhood, Minnetonka. Oh my gosh, there was a crew of house invaders that came in the neighborhood. The people went crazy. You know, it's
Get a gun, learn to use it.
it's a racial issue. It's a
Get a
racial
gun,
issue.
learn to use it. But yes.
But I want to
Yes.
get my point out. There is a righteous default here, but it would require a rethinking of how we see ourselves as American citizens. Are we American citizens that are devoid of the Judeo-Christian heritage of the Western culture? That we are involved in some kind of woke ideology, some kind of postmodern Marxist formation of thought?
Those people want to see Israel burn right now.
Well,
Jews. Jews from within that.
There was Jews that were protesting for the Palestinians yesterday all over the country.
Horrifying.
Well,
yes and no.
Okay.
Proceed.
Are we Judeo-Christian in our culture, and that there is a spiritual religious tie to the Jewish people that Christian people want to honor and then protect because we're one family? I mean, certainly the Iranians, when they were in their parliament screaming death to America, they certainly see the great Satan as one family. For them,
but were they saying death to America as a genuine organic animus towards America or as a proxy for Israel?
The same way the Iranians are supported by the Chinese, the Israelis are supported by the United States. But less.
The Iranians ain't playing around. They're calling death to the fundamental root cause.
They want the root cause destroyed. And we might have a
we're very slow to even mention China.
Well,
in anything, let alone this.
The root cause of so many things that are going on in the world is the Chinese 100-year plan to supplant the United States as the leader of global governance. You know, we got a $33 trillion debt. What is that? I mean, we're out over our skis in so many different ways. We need to retrench. If we care about our citizens, if we, the people, care about our fellow citizens, our leaders don't seem to care. I mean, they're all in on every adventure they can get us into, every distraction they can get us into. And the images that came out of Israel, for me, I couldn't sleep. I mean, I called you, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't expect you to pick up. You couldn't sleep either.
Well, I think it's very simple for American citizens, or it should be very simple. I told you this on the phone. It's interesting that the left, Democrat, liberal-leaning American citizens, and even Jews in some case, are in some ways in the same place that many of the anti-war right are on this issue, but for a completely different reason, right? They see Bibi Netanyahu as a staunch nationalist, an Israeli nationalist, and he's more of a nationalist political leader, irrespective of Israel being a major linchpin of the global narrative and globalism, you know, military, economic, you know, that whole deal. But Bibi himself is seen as a nationalist, a far right nationalist, right, or a right of center nationalist leader. So they reject him on that basis.
Are we talking about the Jewish people?
Yes, some Jewish, people on the left, but just Democrats and left-leaning people in general in America.
I think they view him as a person who will not negotiate with the Palestinians. I mean, I think that's the...
But they see him in the same echelon with we have a border, we're going to protect the border. Anybody who wants to protect the border...
A militarist.
...is a fascist of sorts. Now, they won't call him a fascist because of the historical implications, but certainly the pro-Palestinian left movement views him within the colonial fabric of Western society.
And so does the liberal leftist Jews that don't believe in God.
Right.
They view him, I think, very similarly.
Right.
Someone that will not seek a two-state solution with the Palestinians, who has thrown in with the religious people of Israel, a threat to women's rights, gay rights, kind of the post-World War II Democrat liberal order. Netanyahu is seen as a threat to that, yet he bases his whole legitimacy upon it.
double cross, triple cross.
It is getting pretty deep.
And we
isn't
can't.
it?
I mean, everybody. You can't trust. You can't trust BB either. He's sharp, smart, brilliant guy. Can't trust him. He's exactly what Vladimir Putin was in Russia.
Be a great interview, the two of them together.
Ex-spy, killer, assassin. His secrets have secrets, just like Vladimir Putin's does. Who knows what he's playing at? Who knows what he's working? We don't know. My point is this. Everybody comes out and they've been saying in this weird mockingbird style for as long as this Palestinian and Israel conflict has had airtime on television, Israel has the right to defend itself. I mean, it's a common I think you can go watch a bunch of mainstream.
Why would anybody even say that? I mean, they actually have to reinforce the idea of self-defense as if it needs to be said.
I know.
I mean, that's just in and of itself is interesting. Before we go there, let's just go back one notch.
Okay.
I'm going to just share what I think. This globalized architecture is fractured. It's fractured. You call it the four-person jump ball. I think I know where you got that idea, but I'm going to leave it as a professional basketball player. It's a very apt metaphor. I think Bibi Netanyahu, who was in front of the United Nations, but just about 3 weeks ago, touting Israel's great leadership in artificial intelligence. Because Israel is a great leader in this area. I think when you start talking about this fourth industrial revolution, we're not quite sure who's going to emerge as the leader, because it's going to be who leads on these technologies. So when you say you don't know where he's coming from, I'm going to posit my theory of the case. He's a little bit different than our leadership. He's a Jewish ethno-nationalist.
Mm-hmm.
He's interested in the survival of the Jewish people. One could say, what's going on with the medical situation there in Israel? That does make one question what he was doing. But we don't know anything about the backstories. What we know is what I can say with a great deal of certainty. He has a love for the Jewish people. Now, how twisted that love is, or what kind of twisted policies that come out in his effort to maintain his own personal brand and power and provide for the Jewish people, hey, go back and look up the history of the Irgun and the Stern Gang in the 1940s. I mean, these people were willing to do some pretty skullduggerous actions to accomplish their goals. I think President Xi is very similar. I mean, President Xi is not down with globalism as it was formulated by Kissinger and by Brzezinski and by Bertrand Russell and by Galton.
He likes the idea. He don't like the version.
He just doesn't like the split
and
who's running the show. But is he interested in the survival, the maintenance, and the growth of the Chinese people? I have Chinese friends all the time tell me that nobody in China wants war. No one. I said, come on, the leadership seems to. No, it's all a scam to them. They want money. They are focused on the money there. That's their theory of the case. I think these ethno-nationalist groups are a little different than we are here in our multicultural society. I think their focus is on the survival. I think Bibi's focus is on the survival of the Jewish people. I think it's possible, as much as he was the first world leader to call Biden after the election, he was the first person to call and congratulate him, the first world leader. So he clearly, no matter all the things that had been done for him in the previous administration, which included moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem, which was a bombshell, and the Abraham Accords, another bombshell. He was the first leader to call and congratulate Biden.
Horrifying.
Well, he probably...
No.
Post-World War II.
The American people are going to accept it. The American military-industrial complex is fronting it. This is the way of the world. Now it's about the appearance of Israel's relationship with America.
Well, what's going to be the best?
The king is dead. Long live the king. That was that call.
Yeah, but beyond that, what's the best for the Ukrainians, for the Israelis, for the Taiwanese? The defense of democracy. The third leg of the holy trinity of the globalists. Climate change, social equity, and democracy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people in the, I don't even want to label it anymore because the labels don't mean anything. But there's a lot of people, I would say both you and I would be in this camp. What are we doing getting involved in a land war in Asia? I mean, in other words, if I am going to be vehemently opposed
Mm-hmm.
to the war in the Ukraine, would I not also be opposed to the war, American involvement in a war in Israel? I would have to be, or I would be without principles. And that's what we have, of course, across the range of our talking heads and pundits.
What I was going to say is Israel. I agree with you. Yeah. What I was going to say is they keep saying, Israel has a right to defend itself. It certainly does. It has the right to defend itself. And again, it's a huge indictment of this entire post-World War II democratic liberal order and the foreign policy in support of Israel and all the resources and time and energy from the military-industrial complex that has gone to fortify the West position with Israel. If by now the Israelis don't have the militaristic, the advancement in their military and in their technology to defend themselves. If they don't have that capacity by now, then that means it's an indefensible outpost. And I told you on the phone, and I think this is a reasonable thing to put forward, and will show where a lot of people are. Evacuate Israel. Evacuate it. Bring the Jews to New Jerusalem. Bring the Jews to America. God lives in your heart and your mind. It's not a place. It's not a place and a time. It's in your heart. It's in your mind. The Holy Land can be taken back later. It can be recaptured later. What can't happen if America's going to defend democracy all across the globe, what can't happen is what happened to the Romans. We can't spend all of our military resources defending some outpost that's indefensible and let barbarians sack DC, sack Rome. And that's what happened to the Roman Empire. They got spread so thin, by the time the barbarians gathered up and decided to storm Rome, there was nobody to fight them off. 2.5 million people undocumented coming through our border right now. And I know a lot of the leftists would say, oh, first of all, your people on the right would say, you're a Jew lover. You want the Jews to come to America. Then we're going to be taken over by Jews. No Jews, no Negroes. It's like these people are working for the security state, number one. And there's a lot of them, an undocumented, unquantifiable amount of them, which is scary in and of itself. Who knows how many real Nazis are out there? And why are we going to let globalists take us into a war against Nazis, on behalf of Nazis, and against Muslims on behalf of Jews? This is crazy. This is wild.
The great scam.
This is wild in the linchpin of the global narrative.
Well, the great scam is our
But
progressives.
I'm going to finish this. I want
Okay.
to say, evacuate Israel. Evacuate Israel. Bring the Jews home. And there are some people who would say, well, you'll let Jewish refugees come from war-threatening Israel or Middle East, but you won't let undocumented illegal immigrants come from Guatemala. There's a significant difference between being pot committed. We are pot committed in Israel. Would you agree?
Yes.
Pot
sure.
committed. Nuclear nation.
All on the bar.
Iran's nuclear nation. Pakistan, India, nuclear. Taiwan, China, South Korea, North Korea, nuclear. The entire Eurasian landmass is a pot committed position for America. We're pot committed in Israel and to the Jews now. We signed up for it. That's what it is. We'll take an IOU from the Europeans because most of them came from Europe, like your family. We don't see the Europeans lining up to have a counter response on behalf of Israel, do we? Is Germany and France and the entire European Union, are they the first response, or are we sailing the Ford into the Mediterranean?
We're right behind you, boss. That's their story.
Right?
Right.
Okay. This is where they came from. This is where a lot of the Jews who live in Israel came from Europe. Why can't they go back to Europe? And I'm not saying they should. I'm saying we'll take them, right? Because the number one thing is to be able to secure our position, retrench, right? And it's way different to let Jewish refugees into the country because they have a sophisticated and very, very thorough documentation process for their citizens. Well documented. Every Israeli citizen's well documented. Okay. Letting them into the country and letting 2.5 anybody's from anywhere is a completely different prospect. And we should do it.
Where'd you come up with this 2.5 million number? I'm just curious.
That's the estimate of how many undocumented illegal immigrants will come through this year.
I I read the New York Post. The New York Post.
It's one of the estimates.
Said it's 3.5 million.
Well, great. Maybe it's
but
7.
It could be 15.
Maybe.
There's
who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
We won't.
If you can't stop them, you can't properly document
that's
the
correct.
amount.
And you know the horrifying thing about this is we may find out quite shortly here that we're involved in this war, whether we like it or not. There may be all kinds of foreign actors.
What do you think about my idea to evacuate the Jews?
I think it's an idea. I think any novel ideas that get put on the table as a alternative to genocide are ideas that are worthy of consideration.
It's not about that. Look, they full retaliation. Fine. Moral hazard. If your strategy is we're going to go door to door and purge Palestine of Hamas, right? Like you said earlier, can't be done.
It can be done. It's just going to be.
It can't be. Yeah, well, for genocide.
It's genocide. That's
because how do you identify? If you could identify Hamas properly, then you wouldn't have got attacked.
If you had that kind of intelligence, what's this whole scam about with them coming through that wall? Right?
Right.
And if you looked at the films that I saw, the first thing that ran through my mind was, these people aren't Palestinians. I mean, when I looked at the films of who some of the hostage takers were,
they didn't look Palestinian.
They were not Palestinian. They were Africans. Maybe they were from Yemen, Yemenis, or I don't know where they were from.
Or you look at our own border and you start to think, I thought all of the refugees were coming from Central and South America. These people look African.
Not all of them on those films, but there was a mix.
There was some of them in there.
There was a mixed cultural group,
right?
Which is strange because, of course, the Palestinians are an ethno-nationalist group
to the max.
So if they're letting in mercenaries, this gives fuel to the fire that the Biden administration gave the Iranians fungible monies, because, of course, the argument is they can't use the money except for humanitarian issues. No, if they know the money's coming, they can spend what money they have on whatever they want to. Is it possible they bought a mercenary army? Yes, it is very possible. Very possible. But if you're going to buy a mercenary army, how does that escape the detection of our fine security state? That brings up, there's more questions here than there are answers.
Of course. But that's the position. Again, Israel, look, retaliate with the full force, reasonable force, but full force.
They can't retaliate with full force. There's 160 hostages.
Look, America's longstanding policy is we don't negotiate with terrorists.
But we just paid $5 billion or $6 billion to get back 5 people.
You could make a good argument that that individual is not necessarily beholden to American ideas.
It sounds great. We don't negotiate with hostages.
Well,
for hostages, or we don't negotiate with terrorists. Seems like we do.
For a very good reason. We don't negotiate with terrorists because you become slave to hostage takers. That's the thinking.
So we should write off those 100+ people or whatever the number is and just say casualties of war?
Well, how does one decide who lives and who dies? It's a tough thing to decide.
Well, it's very simple. If Israel goes in there with full ferocity, they're going to die.
Right.
Right.
But how can you trust the Palestinians? I mean, this is the thing. Okay, this is another important point. If these people are pure ideologues, these people hate Israel on an anti-Semitic basis alone, which is strange because they're Semitic too, right? Cousins. If they hate Israel purely on an anti-Semitic basis, then they're not going to negotiate. They wouldn't negotiate. And if they do negotiate, then the hatred is not purely ideological. It's political.
Well, there's a difference between who's running the show and who's carrying the
What
guns.
I'm saying is if it's political, then that lends to the theory that there are other players behind it that are pushing the chips, that are pushing the pieces. Because purely hatred, Osama, and as violent and as extreme and radical as the terrorists get, Osama bin Laden being the poster child of the modern era, even he was negotiable, right? Because didn't they?
He was a CIA asset in the 1980s.
That's what I'm saying. Another example that it was political, not ideological. So this whole narrative that you can hear on Fox News about Muslims being this extremist ideological threat feels like a bullshit story. These people are political, and they're political pawns that are for purchase, that are for hire. And they're using Islam as a cover story. And by us providing cover, saying that it's an Islamic ideology, alienates other Muslims from this divide. It creates another cultural divide. And then you got a lot of people, the number one Muslim population is in where?
Indonesia.
The Muslims in Indonesia are sitting there going, what? How are we getting, what are we talking about? We're not, all of you get your goods from here that are supplemented from China and some, made in China, but it's really, made in Indonesia, but it's really made in China. What's wrong with we're in on the deal. What are you talking about? We love globalism. We love love the West.
Klaus Schwab was just in Indonesia holding court a few weeks ago.
I didn't even know that. You see what I mean? It's just, when you start to see it, when you have eyes to see it and ears to hear, you start to realize that the corruption is far more profound than people give it credit for. But people want to go the other direction. They want to simplify it down and go, you know what? The Palestinians have been oppressed for too long, and it was just time to throw down. And Israel was asleep that morning, and the entire Western intelligence apparatus was, observing the Jewish holiday as well. Come on, guys. What's going on here? What is going on here?
We can go with the facts that we know. We know that corridor was recently proposed less than a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
We know that within the last month, MBS was interviewed by Brett Baer on Fox News, where he said he was working out the terms of a peace treaty with Israel. This was within the last month. So I have to say that the ethnic religious hatreds are a convenient cover story for some very obvious realities.
I'm going to smack that bug. I can't believe these.
Can't take it, huh?
Go ahead. Keep talking.
Oh, good play. Got it. One shot.
Miyagi.
Got it.
Danielson.
Well, you have to get the chopsticks out for that.
Nope. I'm not Chinese.
Good enough, right?
Black men don't use chopsticks.
Just,
I actually do. I actually can use chopsticks.
I think that's a T-shirt. That's a T-shirt.
Black men don't use chopsticks.
That's correct.
That's a great T-shirt.
That's a great T-shirt.
You just witnessed another T-shirt idea right there.
That's correct.
I actually can use chopsticks. I refuse to use chopsticks to eat noodles or rice. When I ate sushi, and I haven't eaten sushi because I've been having a little minor seafood allergy that turned into a big seafood allergy in the last year. So I'm just done with sushi altogether. But I eat sushi with chopsticks, but I would never use chopsticks to eat noodles or rice. That's too conforming. It's too assimilating to Chinese culture. I'm not doing it on principle.
Well, there are some good parts.
Is sushi even Chinese? Maybe it's Japanese.
It's both countries do it.
Okay.
You know what the Chinese will tell you is everything the Japanese have except lion is Chinese.
Mm.
I mean, all the good things came from China and all the bad things, lion and militarism and Bushido, that's all Japanese.
Bushido's great.
Not to the Chinese, who they were the victims of the Bushido, right? But there's great things about Chinese culture, and the food culture is one of their strongest plays.
No, it's not.
I think so.
Oh, hell no.
You don't like Chinese food?
No, they eat that, Africa man, fuck monkey, Asian man eat bat.
That's Chinese racism. I'm talking about Chinese cuisine.
No, they do have wet markets. It's just that no COVID didn't come from one. But they do have a wet market culture. We don't have in America.
You don't
It's a very dirty thing to fricassee insects and take frog. You know what I saw a video of?
Yeah.
I saw a video
I'm
of
afraid.
a skinned frog, a beheaded skinned frog body,
Yes.
over a bowl of what looked like some type of noodle or something. It's a
Yeah.
noodle and parsley type of
Yeah.
soup, and the water was boiling, and they had the frog on chopsticks, and they dipped it into the boiling water, and the
meat cooked.
the meat the body still reacted to the heat stimuli, and the leg jumped, like getting away from the water. And I just thought to myself, who the fuck eats frog like that anyway? I didn't even think about how weird it was to torture an animal that was already dead by sticking a nerve responsive stimuli carcass into boiling water. I didn't even think about that. I just thought, who the fuck eats frogs anyway? You know, I mean,
The French.
I don't trust them either. Yeah, I mean,
That was a setup, by the way. That
yeah,
was a
he
setup.
knows me. Yeah, that's
That
what he's
was
doing.
a setup.
Yeah, I'm equal opportunity with my prejudice.
Yeah. Well,
And I think we're right to not trust the Chinese, the CCP. And I think we're right to not trust the French as well.
the food culture there.
And the food in Paris sucks too, let's be honest.
As a matter of fact, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
I was very happy to find a hamburger when I was in Paris. I
Yeah.
mean, the place is driving me nuts.
Yeah.
But the food in China is great. If you can set aside, monkeys and monkey balls and
How do you know what you're getting?
tortoises.
How do you know what you're getting? Quality control. It's like getting a Chinese electronic. You don't know what you're getting when you sit down
No,
to
if
eat.
you bring it on home close and personal, the quality control is pretty good. And I'm going to just tell you, Chinese food is based on a philosophy
Mm-hmm.
that we would be well informed by here in the United States, which is the philosophy of balance.
Okay.
Okay, it is.
That's one way to look at it.
Well, I'm just telling
The
you.
other way is
Nobody said you had to eat monkey balls.
a part of the Chinese philosophy is informing clout. You could look at the chart, chicken before the egg, cart before the horse when it comes to Davos in China. Who's following whom?
This has nothing to do with it. We're talking
No,
about
it does.
traditional Chinese
Where
culture.
do you think eat crickets came from? Who were the first people that told us you could eat a cricket?
You know what? If you're eating,
They weren't eating crickets in Europe. There's no candied chocolate for cricket markets in Berlin.
all that aside, that's fine. I don't want to eat crickets.
How many Jews sit down to Shabbat and eat fried locusts?
Pretty soon, quite a few of them. Just give it some time.
That's what I'm saying.
Unless we get the American citizens to become delegates, right? That's which is back to the Dan Schultz podcast.
Right.
No, the food culture in China is very healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it, and I like the idea that these are people that carried swords with them every place they went, and knives, okay?
Right.
They didn't want to have metal touching their lips. So they came up with the wood chopstick idea as a way to make a difference between the sword that I carry to cut your ass and the food that I'm going to, why have a knife on the table? It's a weapon, after all. There's nice things about their culture. There's a lot of nice things.
Whoa.
There's a lot of not nice things. Let's not.
Yeah,
it's just like Israel. There's a lot of nice things about that culture. There's a lot of things that are not good. For example,
rounding up 2 million Muslims.
Mm-hmm. There has been legitimate criticism of the way this issue has been handled going back to 1967.
You mean in Israel?
In Israel.
Mm-hmm.
In 1967, and I was quite conscious and quite proud, that was when the Israelis really consolidated their hold on Israel. Maybe they consolidated their hold for the legitimacy of Israel in 73, but the country was consolidated in 67. But going back to 48, they practiced what is now known as ethnic cleansing. They worked to move the indigenous Arab population off the land, and they did it with terror. I mean, that just seems to me to be facts that can't be questioned.
Are there rules? And this is what I said earlier. Yeah, look, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm an American nationalist. I'm not an Atlanticist. And respectfully, I'm not a global citizen. Okay? I mean, I'm a son of Israel. So that's for all of us Christians, we are sons of
Well,
Israel.
that does make it a little complicated, doesn't it?
It does, but it doesn't.
Well, if you
It
move
could.
from an illegitimate argument to a legitimate argument that actually has a moral standing,
Yes.
because the concept of globalism only has a moral standing as long as you believe in globalism.
Yeah, but a lot of the sons and daughters of Israel in their love of Israel are yet and still very anti-Semitic. It's a weird love-hate relationship.
Maybe this is the moment when these things are going to get clarified.
I think it could.
It
That'd
could
be good.
be.
Bring the Jews to America. Show how much you really love them.
Well, would they come? And the answer is no, they won't. But to make the offer,
they're coming already.
Some will come.
They're coming already.
Some will come.
They're leaving out of there right now. They're boarding planes. They're getting out of there. They know. Look, leave before the bread rises. The Jews know. There's some of them leaving. There's going to be some hardcore ones that stay, and they have a right to fight their honorable, sacred honor war for their piece of land. What does that have to do with us? What does that have to do with us? What is anybody going to do in the world who are fleeing tyranny if America implodes because we fight all these wars? Doesn't there have to be and when you were a kid and you played tag, there was a thing called home base, right?
And yeah, you were safe.
You were safe.
Right.
Yeah, right. If America implodes through chaos by being the protectorate all around the world, where can anybody go for safety?
Maybe that's the end point and the goal of the people that want to see America implode. That must be the end point. That is the end point. That's what we're facing in the American. What are we calling ourselves? The American nationalists? What are we? America firsters? Who are we these days?
I'm an American citizen.
I like that. Clean.
Yes.
American citizens.
Yes.
American citizens movement. And I agree with you.
Let's go the other way. I'm ultra MAGA.
Well, I'm an anti-globalist.
I think ultra MAGA, I said on my podcast, I think America great again. This whole idea that comes from the Marxist postmodern, democracy, social equity, and environmentalism, university academia.
Right.
The whole idea is any reverence of an idea, any reverence for a time and thinking about America's history that was good as a symbol of white supremacy, racism, and slavery. This is a weird reading of history. We abolished slavery. It's over. Done. It got morphed into a new form of slavery. We get that. There's wage slavery. There's going to be technocratic slavery. I get it. Slavery is a sort of,
it's a moving target.
Moving target, no doubt. I got it. But the slavery that's referenced in the historical analysis is gone. It's abolished. To go back to an America that believed in a nation of shopkeepers and the Second Amendment as a bastion against economic imperialism is a beautiful idea. So when I hear Make America Great Again, I'm going back as far as you can possibly go when I say great again.
Self-governance.
I don't know when when they say again, and this is what the left does. Have you ever heard this, Tanner? The left, when people say Make America Great Again, people on the left go, when was it ever great? Make it great again? When was it great? You must be talking about going back to slavery. And they use the fact that the nationalist movement is overrepresented by white guys to make the claim that it's a call to go back to slavery and racial segregation, which in some cases it is, because there is racism in the right side of the conservative movement, as there seems to be in the right side of the political movement all around the world. Ukraine, for example. But it's weird that the Ukrainian right and the American left are tied at the hip.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's weird, but not unironic. My point is, there was a time in American history, there were ideas in American history that are beautiful, useful ideas. And a nation of shopkeepers fortified by the Second Amendment is a great idea. Let's go back there. That's all I'm saying. We can figure it out, and we can win a war, and we could potentially become a global superpower again, right? That's active, I mean. Not that we won't be a global superpower, but that's active on the global stage. We can't do it right now. We're dying to death by 1,000 cuts. Everybody sees it. We're all just watching the ship go down. The band's playing, right? The band's playing, the band is, play that funky music, White Boy, while we go down, right? I mean, this is the end scene of the Titanic right now.
Let me ask you a question.
It's a great song, by the way. Play that funky music, white boy. At least if we're going to go down.
Average white band.
Average white band.
Great band.
White supremacy.
Average white band. They're average.
Every average white man's a white supremacist in these people's minds. But they love that song. Okay, go ahead.
I got a question for you. We're giving, of course, the numbers are funny.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say we've given $200 billion of support to the Ukrainians. We gave it to them.
Mm-hmm.
That means I have to work to pay it off, not the Ukrainians. And what am I working for? I'm working to pay money off that was given to the military-industrial complex. In other words, our government bought arms from our arms industry at probably a 30 or 40% profit, and it was shipped over to the Ukraine, and the Ukrainians got to use it no charge. Do I understand that correctly?
Absolutely.
Okay, would you be okay with the Israelis buying weaponry from our country?
Absolutely not.
Okay, please expound.
War for jobs? What do we do? War manufacturing?
I'm not saying war for jobs. I'm saying if they got themselves with back up against wall and they're running out of arms and munitions and they're willing to pay for supplies, cash on the dash, do we sell it to them?
No.
Then why do we have a military-industrial complex?
That's the question. That's the question.
Well, that is the question.
That's the trillion. That's the $33 trillion question.
There you go. Okay. So then the only thing we really need is what we need for our own defense.
Right.
And what is that? What are we defending?
I'm willing to bring all the people of Israel here and defend them here, but as an extension of American citizenship, not as an extension of being a global protectorate.
So you're talking about a radical restructuring of our economy.
If we're going to put up money to defend people, I put up the money to transport and defend them here as a net positive for the protection, overall protection of American citizens writ large, not as some outpost of a fallen Roman Empire.
I just want to make sure I get this clear. What we're saying, what you're saying is that if they get their back up against the wall and they can pay for arms and munitions, you're saying we don't need to be involved in that as the American citizens. We don't need to be the storehouse. We don't want an economy that's based on producing weapons of war.
What I'm saying is what I'm saying is this. If Israel's back is against the wall, we've given them so much support, so many munitions, so much aid over the last 60 years. If they don't have enough now to defend themselves, then the entire military-industrial complex support of Israel up until this point is now exposed as a complete Ponzi scheme against the American people. So what would more munitions do? If you don't have enough now, I mean, what was happening the last 60 years? We need a forensic accounting of our aid for Israel, because I thought we've been supplying them the whole time. Where are the missiles? Where are the receipts? How much money do you think we've given to Israel for 60 years?
Oh,
just give me a round ballpark number. 60
years.
Look it up, Tanner. Look it up for us. How much American aid has been given to Israel since
day one, since 1948?
Net figure. Let's say it's $1 trillion.
Gotta be.
Okay. $1 trillion. Where'd it go?
Well, one thing that Bibi Netanyahu did, which was quite interesting, is he took a moribund socialist economy, which was the root of Israel.
Right.
Zionism is socialism. It's not Judaism. Let's just get that on the table for all of our
newcomers.
That's a nice way of you to say it. Very nice. Zionism is not about Jewish. It's about socialist. It's about Marxism. It does not create a very robust economy and creates a lot of dependency. So the United States really was Israel's protectorate, and Israel was completely dependent. Let's see.
Cumulative recipient. Whoa, Israel is the largest cumulative recipient of U.S. foreign aid, the largest. Until February 2020, the United States had provided Israel $150 billion non-inflation adjusted in bilateral assistance.
Non-inflation adjusted. Okay, that's a non-number. So we're
It's
up.
$1 trillion.
It's close to $1 trillion.
Okay.
Because we're going back to 48, 56 to
It's
60.
$3 trillion.
I don't know what the number is.
It's big.
But why don't you see if you can get an inflation adjusted figure? That's what you want to ask for. The point is that I'm trying to make is Netanyahu really disconnected Israel very significantly from the United States in the 2000 period because he liberalized the Israeli economy and reduced the socialist aspect of the economy and increased nation of shopkeepers.
Mm-hmm.
Although the shops that they opened were all Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies,
Of course.
of which Israel is at the forefront of.
Absolutely.
Going back to what I said, I'm not based on anybody.
Cyber. So wait, you mean to tell me? Wait a second.
Yeah, I'm telling you exactly.
You mean to tell me?
Yes, I do.
That the Hamas radical ideologue, extremists, terrorists are so sophisticated in their counterintelligence and their counter cybersecurity that they thwarted the number one cybersecurity nation in the entire world?
Apparently they did.
You know, I was born at night.
Not last night.
Come on, guys.
Hey, we can only go by what we know for sure.
I know one thing. Ain't no street Hamas terrorist got better cybersecurity or counter cybersecurity than the Israeli military.
Generally speaking, when you take a bucket loader, a front end loader, and drive it towards the wall, that's going to get picked up by a satellite. So we saw how the wall was breached.
Maybe not. Maybe the satellite system's a fugazi. Maybe they're lying.
It's not there.
Maybe none of this this is what I'm saying.
Well, this could go down as the greatest robbery in the history of the world.
This is what I'm saying. Maybe, and I told you how I feel about the nukes. We'll talk about that a different episode. But listen, it's completely possible that the integrity and the integrity of the entire military infrastructure is half-assed, is half a bullshit story. It's half a fag, right?
Well, let me tell you what we know for sure.
Half a fact. No. I meant not half a fag as in a homosexual. Half a fact.
But building on that concept, there's like 1,000 Israelis got killed that we know of. We're up close to 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
These people didn't have guns. I mean, their belief in that system was so strong that they were walking distance from the wall and they were unarmed.
Thought they were safe.
They thought they were safe. So somebody sold them a bullshit
A caution
story.
to us here in America.
That's more than a caution. That's red light on. We're on our own. For whatever reason that it happens, green light on, red light on, we don't know what happened. But we know the result was a lot of people got slaughtered and they were unarmed. They were not armed. My vision as an American Jew,
every Israeli citizen should be carrying a Desert Eagle, right?
I thought they were, because they were at one time.
That's how they're portrayed.
Well,
that's how they're portrayed in media.
That's correct. You know, you see those black hats, the rabbis, and they got the Uzis.
Yeah.
And under there.
I love that.
Apparently
I
not.
love me a black cat with an Uzi.
Apparently not.
Apparently not.
Apparently that was bullshit. However,
well, the black cats are probably carrying Uzis under those black robes. It's those posh, liberal,
rave attendant
upstart
victims.
Settlements, development projects.
Maybe those development projects are there because the price is right on the real estate and on the loan for the construction. They were pretty nice houses. Maybe they took a lot of people down there that really didn't understand the implications of the choices that they were making. What is this? $250 billion.
That's on the record.
Seems low.
That's on the record. Who knows how much black bag money we've given?
Well, not only that, you take a young Israeli kid and you give him a full scholarship to Harvard, and he goes home a quantum computing PhD. What's that worth?
We don't know.
We don't know what it's worth.
I guarantee you, Hamas has an opinion about it.
Well, their opinion seems to be kill everybody.
Yeah, and again, now the plan is to go door to door in Palestine and cleanse Hamas out of there. I mean, the whole
Cleanse. That's a very strong word you're using there.
yeah, that's what they're saying.
Cleanse.
That's what they're saying.
Like ethnic cleansing.
Yeah,
There's 2 million people live in Gaza.
yeah.
How are you going to do that?
You can't. You got to
Well-
kill every one of them.
Well, you could.
You could kill enough of them to whenever you feel satisfied and that order is restored, that they got the message.
Well, Bibi came out today and said he had to restore deterrence. Deterrence. How do you deter people that are willing to die? You're actually playing into their narrative.
Well, maybe that's a cover story.
It is. They just want to kill them. Or maybe that's a cover story.
This whole idea that these Muslims just want to die, again, this is this boogeyman kind of mockingbird narrative that the mainstream media has played. If a billion Muslims, if any sizable majority, if any sizable minority, if 10% of a billion Muslims, because that's kind of the number. Actually, they say that almost the Fox News sort of conservative right thought process on radical Islam is that 80% of Muslims are radicalized by theological
That's
doctrine.
what they say on Fox News?
In that ilk.
I haven't watched for a while.
By
the numbers have gone up quite a bit.
by theological doctrine alone, that 80% report to believe in Shia law.
Is this after they have alcohol and chase women?
Sharia law, I'm sorry. If 100 million, if 50 million Muslims believed in dying for the cause,
They'd win.
they
They'd
would have
win.
won last year,
They would have won.
10 years ago.
So obviously that's not true.
That's not true.
That's right.
So in Palestine,
So and basically what we're doing is we're creating divisions, no different than the Alpha News type people are breaking apart here in Minnesota.
oh yeah,
The
let's show you black guys stealing golf clubs
A
out of the
mugshot
back
a
of
day.
SUVs.
a mugshot a
Let's
day.
show you nothing to get a pearl clutching Republican's panties in a bunch than showing 6 black guys stealing golf clubs out of the back of a Volkswagen.
So what you're saying, and I want to just emphasize this, there's a very consistent media effort made to separate, let's call it the post-liberal democratic population, from a population that believes in God.
Hmm.
That's an irreconcilable difference. We can't, you mean, is it just 80%? Does that mean that 80% of them believe in God? And just because they believe in God, they're radicalized? That might be what they mean. And of course, my own anecdotal experiences are irrelevant in the case of in the face of such barbarity. But I've always gotten along quite well with Palestinian people, and I've gone out of my way to do so my entire life. Found them to be very educated, kind, thoughtful.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. We got a big Somali population, and I completely reject the farce that Ilhan Omar has put on as a House representative and as an American citizen in general. But I get along great with the Somalis in Minnesota. I told you, I'm not so sure the Somalis are even voting for Ilhan Omar. Everyone I meet says they don't like her.
And the Republican Party of Minnesota that almost has a systematic effort to organize against the Somalis, which
Right.
I have personally witnessed.
I have had 4 Somali men tell me that they would vote Republican, and they are in fact voting Republican this time around because of Donald Trump, but have traditionally not voted Republican because the Republican messaging is very anti-Somali.
Very, and not just messaging, action. Actions are being taken, and it's because of the Sharia law and their faith in God. Their action. I mean, I have been the witness. I've been told personally that their God and their religion is dangerous to America.
Oh, that's the entire conservative. People are going to be saying it in the chat right now. And I'm not saying that it's not. I'm not saying that Islam
Are the same
doesn't.
people saying that Jewish ideology is dangerous to America?
Probably.
Okay.
Oh, and Christianity as well.
Well, why not?
Soon enough.
So then what we're saying is if you believe in God, you're a danger to America.
Soon enough. And anybody who
Is
believes
that
that's
maybe-
not coming for Christians is lying to
Well,
themselves.
that would
They're the same people who believe that these people caught Israel off guard because it was a holiday.
So the Jews were the beta test. Then came the Islamic religion, Islam, and now Christian religion. So really the tie between those religions is they believe in a monotheistic God.
And what agency is the tie right now? What governmental agency is the tie to all three religions?
Go ahead.
Department of Homeland Security, NSA, CIA, intelligence community.
So what we're saying,
radical Muslims, terrorists,
what we're saying,
Christians, terrorists.
What we're saying to
you, Dr. Zev Zelenko, terrorists.
What we're saying to the audience, what we're saying to each other is, there's a very concerted effort to marginalize these communities and break them one from the other so that they can't organize.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is really the tragedy of what's going on in the Middle East, is there are efforts to reconcile. There are efforts to bring these countries and these people together.
Yeah.
So this terrorist event is going to definitely derail those efforts for some period of time. And of course, just like the United States.
It's undoing what Donald Trump did. They're still working on it.
Well, this is
the Abraham Accords.
If you take a look at America's response after 9/11, which was a way over the top, way overblown response. I mean, it's ridiculous.
9/11.
Yeah, people were seeing red.
Right.
People were in the gap. They were gapped out because the towers had come down.
Right.
I think I read that this event is like 40,000 Americans losing their life on one day. What would America do if 40,000 Americans died on a single day? What would we do as a country?
We'd go to war, drop a nuke, probably.
Would we drop a nuke?
I don't know. Depends on who's in power. Hopefully we wouldn't.
I mean, the real issue here is that the people of the world, the free people of the world, not our technocratic leaders, which seem to be doing their own thing, and they have their own divisions going on right now. But why would Jews and Christians be at odds with each other?
Scripture, doctrinal dogma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who wrote that? Who interpreted the dogma to make everybody hate each other? I mean, are we going to, at some point, as free citizens of the world, stop hating each other? I mean,
they'll make the same argument. The place you get into is when spiritual matters and matters of faith become the center of the focus. It goes to a place that is naturally abstract, and they'll use that same abstract argument to make a very non-abstract point, political point. That then why not let every refugee in? If you're saying that Muslims and Christians and Jews should come together under a more humanitarian accord, then why don't we let the people from Guatemala come in, document free? It's all just one big kumbaya, right?
Well, knowing the history of Jewish migration into this country, there's a good argument for that. There is a good argument for it.
Right. They're letting the Guatemalans come in.
All of them, because they're living in horrible circumstances and they're trying to come to America. But I don't ever remember this kind of undocumented entry.
Right. And that's where the hard line is.
No, I mean, I'm not saying that they're...
We're not saying we can't have immigrants.
We
can't say that we're not saying that immigrants are a net negative.
Who are these people?
But undocumented? You're going to let strangers come live in your house? I mean, it's one thing to let a cousin who's on crack and down in the dumps come live in your house. And I probably wouldn't let that happen.
But how about his 6 friends?
Come on. His 6 friends without him.
Right.
He's not even vouching for him.
The thing...
Come on. Who's vouching for these people?
If you look at it from a perspective of conspiracy theory, let's say these people are not coming here to become Democrats. Let's just say that.
Right.
Maybe that was the diversion. Maybe they're just military-age males. Maybe we are under invasion. And what will tell us that is, if there is a war against Iran and there are Iranian agents that have come across that border, and we start to have terrorist events all over the United States of America, what happens to we the people? What's the response to the government, which you can predict will be draconian because people will scream out for protect us, protect us. So it'll be another erosion of our rights, our freedoms.
So you're saying let the undocumented illegal immigrants come across the border, knowing full well the potential of them being terrorist cells or other organized crime cells that will cause violence and ultimately justify martial law.
Perfect way of that solves a lot of problems for a group of people, doesn't it? Solves a lot of problems.
Freedom of movement problems.
Right. Tireget.com will become a non-issue because nobody will be driving anywhere.
Right.
But look what
walking anywhere, let alone driving.
You could say these Palestinians were illegal immigrants. They came across they knocked the border wall down, and they came across. They didn't come across to immigrate, but they came across unrestricted, and they came across with evil intent for the citizens of Israel. What can we learn from this? How can we let people we don't know into our cities and our countries? What a failure that is of we the people.
Right.
So this is your comment about if there was 50 million Muslims that really were willing to die for the cause. Are there any American citizens that are willing to become delegates and involve themselves
and vote or be involved in politics for their citizenship?
To save their families?
And that's my point to Fox News. I mean, you jerk-offs can run that gamut all you want. It's slowly but surely, and I guess we're in a race against the clock. We'll see if their stupid, pathetic narrative holds up against people waking up. I guess, God, inshallah, as the Muslims would say.
Well, inshallah, but the point
God
is,
willing, we wake up.
The narrative is falling apart, and the next step.
Well, now we'll see how quick it's falling apart. I don't understand how after Tucker Carlson was given the boot from Fox, how it even still exists. I don't understand how it didn't go bankrupt unless the same banking cartel is holding up Fox as a controlled opposition to run the narrative. Other than that, I don't see who's listening, who's watching and buying infomercial dollars. How are they justifying their existence? Who's still watching after the biggest television star in America gets the boot in a very publicly controversial way and at the detestment of its audience? Or maybe their narrative is still working. Maybe it in fact is actually still working, and most Americans believe that instead of becoming better citizens, that they should sit around at chicken wing parties and talk about how dangerous Muslims are.
What was the football attendance and what was the football market share on television yesterday?
Huge.
Well, then it's still working, isn't it?
Maybe that's a scam.
Well, it's part of the scam. I went to the mall.
No, I mean, maybe that many people aren't watching football.
Well, that I don't know, but there was certainly football on television. I was watching Amy Klobuchar.
Who knows how much?
Amy Klobuchar was actually tweeting during the game about the game. She was tweeting about the Vikings, and the score was tied. She was using the Vikings as an
endearment, a tool of endearment
to communicate with her constituents here in Minnesota.
Great.
So it is something that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the narrative is still very strong. And why is it strong? Even among people that I know personally, that follow me closely, that know what I have to say. To take it all in and confront it, you got to give up your sleep. You got to give up your sanity. You might have to give up your familial relationships.
But how close does it have to get?
Well, it got pretty close for those Israelis, didn't it?
Yeah, and Jews all around the world, right?
Well, for me, I'm horrified. I'm regardless of my
if you're a Jewish person in America,
you're not safe.
And you see the people coming across the border.
You're not safe.
In southern border.
You're not safe.
How do you sleep at night?
The only way you're safe is if you're self-governing. That means you're in charge of your own health and your own safety. That is not really typical of the modern American experience, but it's something I'm working towards. I'm growing my own food as much as I can. I mean, I'm self-governing as much as I can. But those Jews that died like that, why it's so triggering for people of my generation, they were unable to defend themselves. They were slaughtered.
Mm-hmm.
It evokes the real impact of the Nazi experience for the community, which leads to an immediate justification of deterrence.
And it is an indictment. If there's one thing to be said that I said on my podcast, there are white lies and black truths. White lies are little insignificant lies, quote unquote. There really are no insignificant lies, but more or less you get what I mean. Black truths are telling somebody the truth with malicious intent, right? I'm telling you the truth, but I know that a certain outcome is, or I tell you the truth, but it's not meant to inform you to do something righteous. It's meant to invoke a certain emotion. And that's what Fox News is doing with Islam, because it is an indictment of Muslims. It is an indictment of Islam and Muslims that they would take women, children, and elderly and kill them or rape them. There's no holy war. There are righteous and holy wars. There are divine wars. I've said that before on the show. There is no warrior or soldier for God that takes women hostages or children or the elderly and kills them. There's nothing righteous about that. So that is a real indictment. And don't give me an excuse that the Palestinians have been oppressed and, this is a response. Okay. Well, then you kill every military-age male that you encounter. You don't kill women, children, and then when you show that lack of restraint, it's an indictment of your own cause. And it really goes to ask the question or beg the question of, where are other Muslims at on it? Now you'll have other Muslim nations that condemn these attacks. And I'm sure Saudi Arabia already had their PR going as we condemn these attacks.
No, they didn't actually. Actually, they actually condemned Israel.
Really?
That's correct.
The Saudis condemned Israel.
The Saudis came out
on what grounds?
Because
oppressing the Palestinians?
Yes, the oppression of the Palestinians.
Fuck the Saudis. I tell everybody.
They've been playing both sides.
You can't trust these people at all.
Well, of course you can't, because in their own literature,
I won't even say that. The problem with the Saudis is, in the 4-player jump ball, the Saudis got all the cash.
They're in put a 5th player in there.
They're not in the jump ball because governments supersede people with cash.
Very obvious to me after listening to Netanyahu at the United Nations.
He
wants the Israelis to be in the jump ball.
But wait a second. Governments supersede individuals with cash because they print money. But at the lower rung of politicians who actually affect individual politicians, the cash can play, right? Because it's like a short-term versus long-term. Some men see long-term power. They're true kings made by true kingmakers. They're not enticed by petty cash because they can wield the power of the apparatus, and that gets them off. Some people want cash now because I like cocaine and hookers, right? There's a difference in the type of men that lead. So the Saudis can play the money with some people, which makes them very dangerous.
They want to win.
If it was me, I won't even say it. We'll save it for another time.
I think that's maturity. Some things don't need to be said.
The Saudis better watch their fucking step.
It's just like
they're playing a dangerous fucking game.
It's just like these people that have come across the border. If there is embedded in these millions of people that are going to take terroristic acts against the United States citizens, the citizens have to remember how it happened. The citizens need to remember that there was 1,000 Israelis that were unarmed. Why were they unarmed right on that border?
On the border, at the wall.
That seems really strange, doesn't it? I mean, that takes...
No, it's a false belief in the effectiveness of the military-industrial complex.
It's a false belief. That's the key. Let the narrative unwind.
It's a false sense of security.
So we need more security. It's not enough.
Ultra security.
We need more.
But not military-industrial security, because that security obviously doesn't work.
No, but it could work if we just had more of it. That's going to be the argument.
No, I'm not saying it.
No,
that's going to be the argument.
That's going to be the argument.
We just need more security.
We just need more security.
No, you need more bullets and guns.
The Israelis certainly believe this.
These Israelis would have done well to have an idea, a certain constitutional idea, like, let's say, well-armed militias.
I can't believe it happened like this. You'd think everybody'd pull out a gun and start shooting
No,
back.
I thought they were all IDF trained. Aren't they all military trained?
Apparently not, which is another cautionary tale.
Another scam, Fugazi in the net global.
Well, they were, but how were they trained?
Doesn't every Israeli?
Hey, there are people.
So it's not really attacking
there are
innocent
people
citizens.
in the IDF,
Okay,
that are badass,
of course,
and they're going to let those boys loose,
no doubt,
in Gaza. But apparently, there's quite a population of folks
that
want to go to raves on Shmini Atzeret.
Let's see again. Let's do the
and
numbers.
on Simchas Torah.
Let's do the numbers again.
Yeah.
I don't care how bad the boys are in the IDF, and I know there's some killers in there. I know some Krav Maga practitioners. I know some special forces trained guys from Israel. Respect them, love them. They're killers. Don't get me wrong. But when you're faced with a 2 million person insurgency within your borders, there ain't a motherfucker bad enough. There ain't a motherfucker bad enough. Well, which reflects that it's not really 2 million Hamas terrorists.
That's correct. That proves the conversation, the point you were making.
Because a smart man who's tactical and military trained is going to assess the level of threat first. First thing is sheer numbers. All right, can this be achieved? How can I go door to door in Gaza with 2 million armed insurgents?
That would seem to indicate, a la the conversation we were having before we went on, that there must be, in that 2 million people, a majority of people that just want to have a life. They don't want to give up their life for this fight.
Yeah.
They want to run their shop.
Yeah.
They want to self-govern.
Okay, now to close up here, let's talk about the air raid scam. The air raid warning system scam. That Bibi this morning, he says, get out now. Flee because we're coming, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said before we got on the show, where are they going to go?
Where are they going to go?
And that's a common.
There's no place for them to go.
That's a
terror-inducing comment.
That is a common narrative in the entire Israel-Palestinian conflict, that missile strikes. This ain't the first time that skirmishes broke out between Israel and Hamas or Hezbollah. This stuff goes down all the time. And the common narrative is, well, we let everybody know before we do a missile strike. Okay, number one, if you're letting the citizens know, you're letting your enemies know, which would
allow them to escape.
Yeah. Kind of a perpetual problem then. It just you're playing crush the cockroach and you're giving them 30 minutes to get out of town. That's not what they're doing. Number one, a lot of people argue that that's not really what they're doing. That's not what they've been doing. Even so, you put the warning system, the siren, the air raid warning system, where are they going to go? Where are they supposed to go?
There's no place for them to go.
They can't cross Israel's border in either direction or they get gunned down.
They're under control.
So you can't you can't warn them to go anywhere. And and this is how, if Hamas is really in there terrorizing these people and using the Palestinians as cover to run their ideological extremism, certainly Israel has provided all of the tools for them to do so, right? Because the West and the left and the Jewish Democrats and everybody else who's pro-Palestinian, they use that very obvious logical deceit to say, how are you telling them they got to get out when the missiles are coming when there's nowhere for them to run to? I mean, these are the things
That's kind of cruel, actually, isn't it?
It's
terror.
It's sadistic.
That's terror.
It's sadistic.
Yeah, we're going to tell you right now, we're coming and killing everybody. So if you can get out, run. And you can't run.
Run into a firing line.
It's ridiculous. That's terrible.
Let's bring the Jews to America. That's my final shot. What do you got?
Well, I think a lot of Jews probably would want to come to America.
Blessed is the peacemaker.
I think that's at least it's an idea that doesn't involve ethnic cleansing or forever war. Because really, what is Israel? Israel is the sine qua non of a forever war. That war has gone on there since the moment that country was put in place. I wonder if the people that supported Israel becoming a country knew that they were going to set up the predicate for a forever war that would be regulated by the United Nations, because that's really what it is. It's the linchpin of the globalist architecture. It's a forever war, and all of those wars are adjudicated and regulated by the United Nations and the Security Council. It's the model for all of the forever wars. Now the Ukraine can be a forever war. That would mean war is peace.
Again, we can theorize, and it's good to do so. It's prudent to do so. It's prudent as an American citizen to just try and think about these things.
Think out of the box.
Think out of the box, try so that you don't take a fast food politics with French fries meal, a story from Fox News or MSNBC. It's prudent to think outside of the box. As far as American citizens go, it's very, very simple. We cannot fight a four-front war on the Eurasian landmass and incur a 2.5, 3.5, maybe 8 million undocumented invasion of undocumented illegal immigrants here in our own country.
With a $33 trillion debt.
With a $33 trillion debt. And the ever-present threat of another pandemic. We can't do it without surrendering our remaining rights and freedoms to a global totalitarian police state.
That's the bottom line right there.
We can't do it.
We won't do it. We're not going to do that. That's the entire reason we have Free People Radio. That's why we're doing the podcast, is to share with our listeners and our viewers our firm belief in human freedom. That is the cornerstone of the entire enterprise of being a living human being. Mm. And it seems quite evident to me that all the forces that are now starting to surround us come to one conclusion. We have to give up our rights for our safety. It wasn't enough for convenience. It's our safety. In Israel, guaranteed today, the citizens of Israel are dependent on their government to protect them. Guaranteed.
A cautionary tale for the citizens of Israel, who we send our thoughts and prayers to as they go through this chaotic and violent turmoil, but also a cautionary tale to the rest of you American citizens out there. Your government cannot protect you. Get comfortable with the idea now. It's not a call for anarchy or a breakdown of law and order. Your government is proving on a daily, weekly, hourly, yearly basis that its claims and promotion and propaganda that it can protect you, and you can sit at home and twiddle your thumbs and fatten your pockets and dabble in your vices or whatever it is. When push comes to shove, do what you want. Hey, you're 40 years old. You got hair on your knuckles and on your back and on your shoulders. You want to dress like a woman? You want to put a pink spaghetti strap dress on? Fine. You're an American citizen. We're not here to revoke the rights of American citizens that are protected by the Constitution. Short of stealing, raping, murdering, defiling a child,
have at it.
Do what you're going to do. That's part of being an American citizen. It's our job as Christians to evangelize these people and pull them away from sin into God's grace and mercy. You're a citizen. You get to do what you want. But for the love of God, your God even, I don't know, you pray to some omnisexual pagan God. For the love of your God, please don't let MSNBC or Fox News, for that matter, tell you that your citizenship is safe, that you're safe, that your citizenship is in good health under this administration or any of these global political oligarchs.
You know what you're asking people to do, really? Beyond all this political, you're just asking people to be human beings. We're encouraging the full development of human capacity that is inherent and innate within every human being. What does the government do? It makes things truncated within my humanity by providing me things conveniently, like heat. So instead of chopping down a tree today, I got heat at my house. Somehow, tree chopping got a bad reputation. Actually, I like to cut wood. You like playing with an axe? I like it. We might have to go back to doing some things
Back to the basics.
Back to the basics of just being a human being. We're really arguing about what it is to be a human being.
And they love to sell you a Ford pickup truck by showing you a man with an axe, but they don't want you to be one.
Yeah, that's kind of crude, isn't it?
Well, it's kind of homoerotic.
I think what you're asking people to do, what I want to redefine it as, not that we're saying, look at this evil government alone. Look at who we can be as human beings.
Right.
Look at the glory that we have, the feelings of integrity and fulfillment we come from being free.
What would have been really cool, although no violence and death is cool, so to speak. But what would have been empowering for free people all around the world is when those Hamas terrorists paraglided over that festival, and those
none of them got to touch down because everybody pulled out automatic weapons.
Those Israeli citizens
shot them in the air,
up those Uzis,
right,
and isolated or neutralized that threat.
And I want to say, and for those that didn't see it, you can find it. The scenes of the revelers running away, which kind of looked like zebras running on the Serengeti Plain.
Mm-hmm.
That set back the self-image of Jews back to the Nazi period. Because the psychological benefit of a strong Israel has been that we all feel ennobled and empowered by the sacrifices of the soldiers, the Jewish soldiers that kept the country free. So to watch those people run like that and see this kind of slaughter, it's psychologically going to have an effect that will be visited onto the second and third generation. We need to defend and provide for ourselves. And that includes becoming a delegate, voting, being involved in the parties, taking our self-governance seriously. Look what's happening when you don't. You get slaughtered. Really a hard thing for me to watch. We didn't really talk about the psychological aspects of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it just reinforces the need to be free.
We'll make sure we go shooting this week in light of that. The
Okay.
great Professor Penn, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you being back. We're running over time. The great Professor Penn has other pressing matters. We're sure to get you back in the studio as this story develops.
Thank you.
Because it's certainly not done. If you haven't already, go to the Professor Penn podcast, subscribe, like, comment. The Professor Penn will be covering this topic tomorrow, I'm sure. Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Central, maybe 7:30 p.m. Central. We'll decide off air.
And I'm going to tell you, when you go, we have a beautiful website, freepeopleradio.com.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, please come and be a member. We're not doing this to make money. We don't want to go bankrupt. Any way you can help us, we appreciate it. Now, Royce is a little hesitant to make a comment like this. I know it. I am not similarly afflicted. I'm asking for everyone to please support Free People Radio, freepeopleradio.com. We need your viewership, your membership, and your support because we want to bring you more content like this.
Absolutely.
Every time we get together like this, we're just tickling the audience with HEBROES, which is intended to have some comedy. Unfortunately, this is not a very comedic day.
That's right.
This is a day where I want to just say, I'm torn apart inside, couldn't sleep. I want to thank you for taking my phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning. In my house, Mrs. Professor Penn was saying, please turn the television off. Please, let's go to the store. I couldn't do it because for me, this is the involvement with my survival that has existed for me since I was born. Because I am, in my own mind, struggling to survive. Thank you for being there for me.
Man, we appreciate you. We appreciate the time. We appreciate your wisdom. We appreciate the podcast. Yes, as far as freepeopleradio.com goes, we do now have the patron platform up and running. You can go to freepeopleradio.com, go to the donate tab. You have 4 options there to donate. Patreon, which we know is dangerous and always a threat to be deplatformed. So we provided a few other options. In the future, these options will be separated into different types of involvement with the podcast. Some will be basic donation. Some will be exclusive content. That'll be locals.com. Those of you in the conservative movement who are familiar with Locals, it's more of a content community and platform. You'll get exclusive content and one-on-ones, Q&As, live sessions with me and Professor Penn and the other Free People Radio contributors. Donor Box is one where we'll set up a tier system for people to be involved, such as conversation moderators, call-ins, people that can actually be involved with the podcast on a more personal level, questions, topics that you want us to cover, things like that, merchandise suggestions. And the final one is Subscribe Star, where we plan to have certain NFT type of digital memorabilia, that type of thing as well. On all the platforms, you'll be able to subscribe and donate as a basic member, $5 a month if you like the content and you want to just help the cause. But there will be special sort of amenities to each platform that are unique to them.
You'll be helping us build this community. If you decide to
We don't want to get rich. We'd like to break even. Yeah, and breaking even is a task that we could do right now with the audience we have as we continue to grow the audience as well. If you see this episode today, you'll notice that it's my next episode, you'll start to see episodes that have a white background. We want to color code things so you guys can understand what type of episodes you're getting within the Please Call Me Crazy podcast format. On Mondays, we're going to be doing deep dives. This Monday, we did a deep dive, but with a guest because it was relevant to do so. So our guest episodes will be the yellow thumbnail. Our deep dive episodes on Mondays, most likely, most of the time, will be white backgrounds. And our Wednesday news coverage will be the black backgrounds. Also, the Royce White show is coming soon, Saturday night, maybe this weekend if we can get it done, probably next weekend, maybe the week after
HEBROES
that.
is out there.
HEBROES is on the deck, on the dash.
We got to find a space where we can do some comedy. We certainly couldn't do it today.
Yeah, no.
And tomorrow on Professor Penn, we are going to cover this event in great depth. I want to thank the audience members that go back and forth.
Yeah.
It's great. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to coming back.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult subject today.
HEBROES is great. FreePeopleRadio.com, the Professor Penn podcast, Professor Penn, thoughts and prayers to people in Israel, thoughts and prayers to TJ Klein and Nancy. I know Nancy's probably worried sick. I'm going to give her a call here to make sure, see how she's doing. Plenty of people that not only Professor Penn and people who I know personally, but plenty of basketball players who have played in Israel. Amari Stoudemire is a dual citizen there in Israel, I believe. So he also is a part of the Big Three family. So our prayers and thoughts and prayers go out to anybody who's affected by this and anybody in Palestine or anybody in the surrounding area that's going to now be a victim to needless violence. War is usually a war between kings, kingmakers, and political elites, not people, not citizens, and certainly not free people. So thoughts and prayers with everybody. Thanks for your viewership and listenership today and in the future. The fight continues. Godspeed.